Welcome again to another session of Chat with Dr. Mercy Umeri. I'm excited to be here today because I am with a special person today. I say that about all my guests, but this one is special. She's my sister, she's my friend, and Emem is a consummate professional. I tell you, I was going through Emem's bio and I'm like, this will take us like 3 minutes to read. I'm just going to summarize. I'm just going to summarize who my guest is today. Emem Opashi she's an educator. She's a creative problem solver. She's a learning and development specialist. She's an author and an advocate for education as a lifestyle for all. When I tell you she's special, that's one of the reasons we connect on that level, because I believe that education should be for everyone, and we are both very strong advocates for people getting educated, not just getting educated, but also using their education to bring about good in the world. Abides by the philosophy that everyone belongs in education, no matter their industry. It just alludes to what I just said now. Enjoys connecting with people by creating unique global platforms for networking where growth, collaboration, and learning experiences thrive to become tangible assets. So you'll understand why Emem is the right person today for us to talk about the topic, building and leveraging relationships and networks. Emem Opashi, you are welcome.
Thank you so much, Doc. Dr. Mercy. Thank you very much. A great privilege to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I am excited to have you here. So we'll get right into the topic with your bio, and I'll, at the end of the day, if you're listening to us, you should get onto Emem's LinkedIn page to get the full reading of her bio. You have so much experience, and not just experience, you are a people's person. And today we'll be talking about building and leveraging relationships and networks. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, when we talk about relationships, what does that mean for you? Or what does it mean to you? And I'm not just talking about textbook
I know, right?
definition. To you as a person, when you think about relationships, what comes to mind?
I think when I think about when I talk about relationships, really for me, relationships, the word connection always comes in, and it's also about the way you regard or perceive or behave around a particular person. It speaks about the level or the relationship or connection you have. And it comes at so many levels. I'm trying to make it like the most basic non-dictionary version of that. So connection, a relationship for me is about connections. And you know how connections are. Some are not necessarily a particular level. Some, if you're trying to plug in something, like you're trying to connect, there's some that are they charge you up. You know how it is. There's some that yeah, they all have different purposes. They all have different purposes. They come at different levels. I think it's about that connection, that meaningful perception, and the way you relate with another. I'll say it in terms of people, because people connect with other things. People have relationship with objects.
Yes, absolutely.
Talking about people today. So
Mhm.
connections, or I think I saw a definition that speaks about a state of being. Is a state of being, actually. The state
Mm.
of connected. So relationship is that state. Someone is in a relationship with this person or those kind of things.
I actually like the word you used about connection, because when we think about relationships and as we go in, there are other things we're going to talk about, but when you talk about connection, it gives me this idea of a two-way street. It is not, when you're talking about connection, it's like a link,
Yeah.
right? Bringing together. So it's not a one-way thing. When we talk about relationships, I like the way you tied it all in to say it is a connection. And we've seen that sometimes when people talk about relationships, when you don't look at it as a form of connection, it becomes a one-way thing where you have somebody who is constantly collecting, to say,
dragging and
yeah,
extracting and
dragging other people down. So that's not what we're talking about today, right? No, no. We're talking about connection. We're talking about, like you said,
meaningful, significant.
yes, yes, absolutely. You are in a position where I look at your connections, not just the people I know you personally with, but I also look at your connections with organizations. I look at your connections with other people. I see how you partner and collaborate with other people. I want you to, how are you able to do this? How are you able to sustain quality relationships? Because it's one thing to connect with people, but it's another thing to sustain those relationships and those partnerships. How are you able to do this? First, on a personal level, then again, on a professional business level.
Ooh, thank you. That's look at that. I'm feeling all like I'm enjoying like some sort of doctoral conversation with you. I think that's really good. I'll start with an example. I think for me, I'm really like talking about this because I used to just take it for granted. You connect with people and people people stay and they, as you said, it's a two-way thing. And there are people out there who really appreciate it. But I used to just take it for granted that there are people, they like what you do and so on. I just remember that I think 3 years ago we have this big event we do every year. I flew back to Nigeria for this event and the people that came out, there's one man that came to me, he says, look, this is after COVID. He's not sure he has stepped out of, he hasn't gone for any program, any event, but anything I do, he would always come. And
Wow.
he wasn't even sure whether I was going to be in the country, but he said anything I do, he would always come. I've known this person for, I think this is the 17th or 18th year.
Wow.
And he's even like, this guy's a high level, he's even a Muslim. So he's like, even heads part of like the Muslim school.
Wow.
For me, it was so symbolic because I really stepped back and I thought in my head, oh my God, that I take this thing for granted. He says that I've invested in them. And I think I'll just start with, he said I invested that when I started my business, I actually created like a free directory of schools. At that time, I didn't even have, not like I had any money or anything. I was baking cakes to make money to get transport to go and pick up addresses to create a document. These are things that I was just doing because, oh, yeah, I feel it's something to do. I think one of the first things is that investing, to be able to maintain them, you have to invest in them. You have to be intentional. You must be intentional because you want to sustain quality, meaningful relationships. You must be able to be intentional. And what I mean by that intentional is by reaching out. And sometimes I schedule in my diary or in my schedule for the week. Oh, I should call these people or just send them a message. Think about someone sometimes and then you forget, and then maybe sometime later they call you. I actually schedule somewhere. Sometimes I'll even remind my team, hey, have you called this other person? We try our best to try and show support, and that's both at a personal level, both at a professional level too. So in that investing, before you can even invest, actually you have to educate yourself about what it really means to be clear about what it really means to manage and sustain quality relationships. I think showing empathy, listening actively to people have also been things that I've learned along the way. I stumbled on them is when people tell you and you say, oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. I'm going to try and do that more. And then also in this whole thing, you need to also know how to set boundaries because you said it's two-way, it's symbiotic, but there's always that time when one person is giving more, doing much more. Another example at a professional level for us, that many times we're always hosting things that we're like, oh, this is how much it costs, this is how much it costs. And some people like come. There's some people who I don't understand it myself. They pay for everything, and they've been doing this since we started our organization in 2009. That's a time. And so some days I have to say, you guys, person has been paying. Let's give them a free ticket, or let's do something for free. Let's just have a free session. It has to be like, okay, you've been giving as much as you're paying for the value you perceive that we're giving, but we also want to make sure that sometimes we're giving back, we're appreciating you. So there's that aspect of appreciation. And then I talked about boundaries and knowing how to set boundaries so that you don't get overwhelmed, or you know how it is, there's so much, you're trying so hard, you're networking, but you're getting exhausted too. And then understanding your circle of influence. Because there's so many levels of relationships. It's not because I've known you for 20 years, doesn't mean I bring you into my inner circle. You might not need to be, maybe that's not where you need to be positioned in someone's life. And there's some people I've met in a month or 2 months, and you find, oh my goodness, there's that connection. It's so, you're even led by the spirit, like this person, this is the person, this person is, they're going to play a very key role in the place where you are right now. So it's very important to be self-aware, to know when some people after some time they may be in your inner circle, and some people maybe they deserve after some time to move up a few rings towards the outer part because it's not serving you.
Oh, you like we can just with this question you just answered, I can just have like a master class with just this question you answered. And I'm not even kidding you, because as you were talking, I was making notes, right? You talked about to connect and sustain relationships does not just happen. It won't just happen like magic. You have to invest in people. And that example you gave about somebody who's been your friend for who's known you for 17 years and is still coming for your programs and your events, even when they thought that you may not even be present. That means for them, whether you are there or not, you have created a structure of value that you give to people. And you talked about being intentional. And I like the example you gave about the fact that sometimes you have to even put it in your notes, about you connect with this person. Maybe remember to send a message, remember to outreach, reaching out to these people and making sure that you're more like oiling the wheel of that relationship or that friendship. You talked about educating yourself. Sometimes people give excuses and say, this is how I was raised, or this is who I am. Talked about educating yourself. My listeners, even if you don't say, some people were born with the skill of people. I introduced you as a people's person. So for you, it might not be so difficult. But even if in quotes, you say you are not a people's person, there are skills that you can learn about how to connect and sustain. You talked about empathy. You talked about listening actively. Don't be the person who is always wanting to talk and not allow the other person to contribute or interject. You talked about giving back. You gave example of even people who have been in business with you, paying for value and even paying for your product. From time to time, you say, we're giving you a free ticket, or we are creating this free webinar for you all. And you talked about appreciating people, of course, giving back to them, but also letting them know how valuable they are to that relationship. And you talked about understanding your sphere of influence, your level of influence. You don't just see people today and you just bring them into your inner circles. Those relationships have to be built over time. Then again, so you can see I was really taking notes. Then you talked about being self-aware, because that self-awareness would also help you create boundaries. And I like that you bring that in, because I also know that you are a mental health advocate like myself. Even though we do all of these things, we want to connect with people, we want to sustain relationship. It is also important that we are not burnt out while doing this. We're not overwhelmed while doing this. Important to set boundaries. For even as Emem is my friend, I'm not just going to show up and be like, sometimes we text each other, are you available now? Is this a good time? You need to still respect those boundaries, even though you have this close relationships with these people. Wow. We can actually just end the video now and we will and we would have achieved.
Did I say all that?
You did. And those are like, no, this is just so beautiful and important points. And these are points that are relatable, that are relevant. This is not textbook. You wanted to say something before I ask you the next question?
I thought of something. I wanted to say that I like how you said a people person, but I want people who are like watching this later or listening. It doesn't mean that you're like I'm not an extrovert, like I'm always going out. Even to what, like I put that network, I put it there like with stars there. I put there with stars in my head. Networking for me, that is the one I need to work on. I have some friends who are experts. I'll ask them some days, oh my God, how do you do it? I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to stay here and cuddle up and read or something. So those are the things. That education doesn't mean you're going to go and do a course on relationship management.
No,
but I'm learning. I see Dr. Mercy doing some great things, or other friends. I'm like, these people are really good at networking. How do they do that? I ask questions. That is about you being intentional and having yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Remember, you don't have to recreate the wheel. If you see people who are good at, for instance, negotiation, you can reach out to them and ask them, how are you able to negotiate so easily? You see people who are very good at partnership, reach out to
Yeah.
them. How are you able to reach out to people and create this wonderful partnership? So, wow, 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 wow. I am loving this conversation. Is that Simi on the call?
She's trying to pick my phone for something. Oh, come here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So say hello to her for me.
Saying hello to you. Hello.
Hi to our viewers. We're real people. We are mothers that have children, and sometimes they show up in our videos, and that's
Exactly.
perfectly okay. No
It's part.
rehearsed. This is not rehearsed. This is perfectly. You're just. This is like if I start unpacking each of the things that you have said, it will be for another video. I'm just going to go to the next question. And you said all of this wonderful nuggets and tips for us on how you have worked on your relationships and
Yeah.
how you keep working on it, because constantly is a work in progress, even for me. I know that not all of your relationships have gone well. Not all of those partnerships have gone well. Can you kindly share the part of this chat with Dr. Umeri series for me? This is not another platform for my classes. No, this is not academic. No, this is an opportunity for us to have real conversations and deal with real issues, because we're dealing with real people. I want you to share, if, as much as you're comfortable with, about relationships that have gone bad. What happened? How did you handle those? Just so that our listeners can know how to tackle some of these things. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter how good you are with people, you're going to have fallouts from time to time. Have you experienced that? How did you handle that?
Fantastic. When you asked me this, I was thinking in my head, there's one workplace one, and I'm trying to think of any within the family. If I have time, let me start with the workplace one. If I have the time, I can touch on family. I think in general, I remember my dad used to tease me and say, "Wow, that I could get along with a cockroach if the cockroach that if the cockroach walked past me, that I have that tendency to." You want to nip everything in the bud as best as possible. Like I really believe in that part, that scripture that says, "Live at peace with all men, as best as possible. Live
Yeah.
peaceably with all men." At the same time, you want to be, you want to have sense about it.
Yes.
One thing that came to mind when you asked this question is, I think when I started working in my second job, or my first job was in a school, and then I worked there for some time. I had a colleague who was a bit older than me, and apparently she had taught me when we were living in Lagos. She had actually taught me, but in this role, me and her were on the same level. We're both teachers, which shouldn't be a problem, really. I'm sure that there's things that happen. So I now moved to this other school that virtually handpicked us because they're just starting. The really big international school, and this lady also happened to be, well, she did the interview and she got there. Now in the organization, the I was really young. I was really like this. I've been married for like 5 years at this time, so I was still quite young, and this was my first job. But the leader, the owner, the head of school seemed to like me so much. She was always saying, "Oh, Emma, you know what? I'm thinking maybe during staff meetings, I think maybe we can get you to manage this department." This other lady, now this older lady who had been my teacher or whatever it was not finding this funny. I wasn't doing this. I'm not in your face. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm trying to be myself. And then she came to my room, my couch from one day. She said to me, "Listen, I want you to avoid me. This is me being
Wow.
bullied at work. I need you to avoid me in this place. I don't know what's going on and what you're doing with this bosses and everything, but I need you to avoid me. How am I going to avoid you when we're both at the same department, anyways?" I'm like, wow. And she says, if everybody else is calling me by my first name, you have no right to call me by. This is, I'm
Wow.
like, interesting. I was at first, I'm very uncomfortable. Every time I'm going for staff meetings, the head of school would always be like, meanwhile, we're a lot of us, we're like 35 of us or something. She finds a way. And you know what? I think with your experience in speaking French or this, why don't you? So I'm like, please, this woman, leave me alone. I had to navigate this because I was getting very uncomfortable. I wasn't going to leave this role, but this lady would find every means. If we're in an assembly together and I walk in, like I honestly I didn't think I if I look at myself, really, I was not trying to fight her. She would see me, she would move to the other side. She's older than me.
Wow.
Anyway, how this was interestingly, we had Secret Santa that year. And I was just saying in my head, Lord, please don't even make the mistake of letting me pick this lady. Of course, trust the Lord. I pick her name and I'm like, my head, of course, the human side of me was like, good, buy her a very tacky gift. This is the best time for this revenge. But I didn't. I bought a beautiful, I was just starting to work. So you can imagine I invested. I bought a beautiful gift.
Wow.
Secret Santas, everybody was opening their gifts and she was going around. Oh my God, who bought this for me? Who bought this for me? She was asking everybody, who bought this for me? I love this. Who bought it for me? So in the end, I went to her and I said, I did. I was your Secret Santa. The birth that she was crying.
Wow.
You got this for me. You got this
Wow.
for me. I got that in my head. I thought you would like it. But for me, it's not like we were like best friends after that, but everything really calmed down. But she would see, she'd be like, "Oh, Emem, do you want me?" So I'm like, "Oh no, I'm fine." I wasn't trying to be like your bestie.
Wow.
I decided I tried to say, you know what? I don't need to be fighting you. I didn't
Yeah.
need, I didn't need to get to the point where I was threatening her or anything like that.
Yes.
Yeah, but for me, that was I fought it with, I fought it with good.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
Again, I was also trying to be very intentional because it's something I'm always thinking in my head. Think about it in the next, if you respond this way, what do you think it's going to be like in the next few months or how so it's not like I necessarily had any particular skill set that time. Like I have, but this is just how it turned out.
That was a
And
lot of skill set. You had a lot of emotional intelligence
that's what it was, right?
attitude.
Maybe that's what it's true because I hadn't done any like particular training. Like I hadn't done the EI training by then. But I got now I think about it now you look at it now, you analyze it, you're like, wow. Even for me, I even respond that way nowadays. You're like, do I still have that in me? Now I might be like, why? Who are you? Maybe not. I don't know.
I know you. I know you. You still would not. You still would not. But I think that's a lot of emotional intelligence. And even though it happened in a professional setting, there was
Yeah,
a lot of personal peace to that because
yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
do anything to this person. I have never wronged you. We have never crossed paths. We know there's a bit of maybe jealousy going on
Yeah.
there or envy going on there, which we all see in our workplaces, especially if your work is excellent. Because if they keep calling you and seeking for your opinion about something, it means that your opinions are
Something.
valued. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? For you to be able to handle that, and you now finalized it with that good that you did. I am so like right now we can just say amen, hallelujah.
Like close the service.
We can close the service now, but thank you for sharing that.